78% of suicide rates worldwide are men. What can we do to help them? Stop allowing women to think they can control a man. Get rid of this man up and boys don't cry attitude when boys are growing up. If we can make it so boys feel okay about crying and talking about their issues growing up, hopefully that'll carry over to adults. Listen. Provide a universal basic income, sending the message to men that their economic value is not their human value, chipping at the ingrained idea that a man that loses his job is a failure. We could be doing so much right now. Stop requiring prescriptions for medicine, get rid of the suicide hotline, stop teaching suicide prevention in schools, make roof access easier for any buildings over 4 stories. The list goes on. One thing to bear in mind is that men are more successful at committing suicide because they tend to use more lethal methods, weapons, for example. Women tend to use pills or other non-violent methods that have a lower success rate. We don't even have good data on attempts for LGBTQ folks, except to know that it is extremely high. This isn't to take away from the ways we need to support men's mental health, but to acknowledge that suicide and suicide ideation is incredibly prevalent across all groups, especially those from marginalized populations. Get neo-feminists to stop calling us evil for having dicks. I have no idea, but if you figure it out, let me know. I'd love to not want to kill myself every single fucking day. Women need to be more supportive when their boyfriends or husbands have emotional issues. I have a bit of an outside perspective because I exclusively date men, as a man, and in my experience all the men I've been in relationships with have been unquestionably supportive emotionally at all times. From what I hear with my straight guy friends and straight guys on Reddit, that's not common with women. Oftentimes they get the whole be a man diatribe, although with less sharp edges. I know men can be guilty of this too, but that issue is being dealt with on a societal level. It is not acknowledged that women are, on average, not emotionally supportive of their boyfriends and husbands, by my estimation. Of course some women are, but some isn't enough. Stop telling them to man up and don't be a pussy. The emotional stress men are put through every day plus the fact that they're not socially allowed to show emotions adds up to some pretty bad emotional struggles. Stop saying men are less of a man when they express emotion. Encourage more female-male relationships without the whole they must be dating or one of them is gay. I'm aware there are a lot of guys with female friends, but in many places of the world it's less common. I hope PP aren't only talking about Europe and America. I think us women need to help men with their issues and stop treating every man as evil or deserving of any evil they have to go through. I know that women tend to be more understanding or nurturing and some men need that in their life. This can even help both men and women. Blowjobs. Blowjobs solve everything. Make it okay in society for men to talk about their feelings, and express those complex things they feel. Make it normal in society for people to reach out to one another when they see something is wrong, or feel something is wrong. Sometimes I need a hug and to be told I'm doing good and things are going to be alright and I don't suffer from depression or any significant psychological disorders that I'm aware of. I would imagine people not being so sparing with basic emotional support for men would probably go a really long way. Reach out to friends and family, just to hang out at least. If they have something to say, listen without judgment, don't immediately try to fix things, or listen just to hear yourself speak. Don't be afraid to get real and let yourself express emotions, tell them what they mean to you. Bring it down to 69%. A lot of us, myself not included but have definitely been before, are really, really lonely and it isn't really my issue but it's an issue so many men deal with and therefore makes it my issue. Male depression is just nodded off and people say man up. That is the worst feeling ever. It's a societal issue. Men face a dichotomy in life. Society says that it's perfectly okay to show pain as a man. You'll see this trope on the TV and in movies all the time. But actually show pain, and you'll see it doesn't quite work that way. So how the hell is a man in pain supposed to deal with it? I have no idea. I don't think anyone really does. I know what I'd do, work to find the inner strength rather than depending on others, but I couldn't write that down in an easy-to-follow formula that anyone could follow. Tell us where you want to eat, already. To know about suicide, but here's a word on a few steps down the ladder anyway. Sometimes a depressed and anxious man will just seem short-tempered and angry. They are just frustrated with the internal battle they are having. They are not angry at you or trying to be rude. May not seem obvious, but literally just acting like the opposite is the case can help a lot. Pointing it out or asking if I've had a bad or busy day just makes me feel worse and hence amps up the anxiety, which further depresses me. Stop telling them to man up when they express their honest feelings. Just give us someone to talk to. Encourage us now and again. I can't speak for all men, but I try to put on a strong face so I'm not called weak or pathetic. I just feel so tired of fighting alone sometimes. Even when I get a small compliment, "You look nice today" or "You did well today," it makes my day. It cheers me up when I'm down and keeps me up when I'm up. This is something that will vary from culture to culture. But I assume we can all agree that a great amount of responsibility and obligations is placed on men regardless of the culture. One could argue the same goes for the rest of the natural kingdom. Men are seen as the providers, and failing such view often ends up with some men feeling emasculated or worthless, which end up in someone taking their life, but not before developing some kind of mental illness caused by the stress and pressure they live under. I hate to bring politics into this, but in a lot of Western countries, men are seen as second-class citizens, and their needs and problems are often ignored on the sole basis that they are men. Helping alleviate some of the pressure levied on men from the start, without emasculating them or calling into or putting into question their masculinity, is a start. Men are not disposable. Edit, added the following as it did not answer the question and it was merely me giving my opinion. Helping alleviate some of the pressure levied on men from the start, without emasculating them or calling into or putting into question their masculinity, is a start. Men are not disposable. Allow us to grow up. Allow the male biological needs to be met in positive and productive ways that help and lead our communities to health, hunting, providing, protecting, feeling like our efforts are not wasted, actually being able to contribute without watching someone else get rich off of our efforts, etc., and not need to ask a capitalist that has instituted a value on our time's permission to be fed and let out of our prison cell to piss like a dog. No one is allowed to grow up that can't take their life into their own hands. There is no more of a hopeless feeling for us. So we see video games, and drugs, and stepping on others as the quickest means to short-term selfish gain and the easy road. And who can teach us any different when our fathers were the ones that accepted the indentured servitude for the price of convenience, letting the laziness interform our mishap and perception of our nature? Now we're taught this is the only way. Now we have not seen or heard of a life where our potential being reached is possible, and we reject the idea of effort as futility. Allow the men that have learned the lesson that we are able to feel valued, that there are fruits to our labors, that we can help ourselves to lead and disseminate healthy values in our communities instead of allowing infantile orange comb over realtor presidents with daddy's money that fuck the world sideways to be the example of how to use your strength to push others around, steal, devalue women, children, and themselves in the process, furthering the cycle. We could start placing value on life rather than placing a value on a life. Teach them men aren't quitters. Don't shame us for asking for help or appearing weak. Tell women to pick up the pace. We could encourage females who claim that they have thought of suicide to go through with that, thus dropping that percentage number down. Sometimes I just cry it helps. Technically, if we get more women to kill themselves, that number would go down. Raise wages. Shorten the work week. Make housing and life expenses more affordable. How many fucking times do we have to go over this shit? We know the problem. Finally, acknowledge that men can have mental health problems too. Tell them to man up and stop acting like little babies, and throw in some stuff about toxic masculinity that always works. /s. Parental equality. Encourage men to quit thinking they have to be monogamous and married to be successful. Posts like this already do a lot for the men that see it. It shows people care and it forces people to think about it.
With